debt ceiling deal is in, and we talk about a bit about what's in it, what this means going forward, and the no-win scenario that I would find myself in if I was actually in Congress and wondering whether or not I would vote for this piece of crap or not. But we'll talk about that and where we go from here and what happens next. In other news, DeSantis comes at Trump from the right again, saying he would repeal the criminal justice reform that so many of us in the libertarian camp actually looked at and said, hey, this might be a really good idea, but we'll be talking a bit about that, what's happening there, and what is going on with that. Several Target stores are hit with bomb threats that turn out to be hoaxes, and they're not coming from right-wingers who are mad about the Pride selection. They're coming from, it turns out, the left, who is mad about the Pride selection. So we'll be going on to what's going on there and what happens there. And to entertain our friend the Mogwai, Lindsey Graham gets an arrest warrant from Russia. Because that's a thing that happens now. It is going to be all of this and more. Happy Memorial Day, everybody. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Yes, Mogwai, target is targeted. That's a very, very good way to put that here. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. This is your evening news. Happy Memorial Day. Apologize for the lengthy introduction off of that. I actually got started, and I looked at my Rumble. I'm like, why is my Rumble not loading up? Why is it not connecting? And then it dawned on me that I never changed out my credentials. For those of you who don't know, if you're streaming over on Rumble, Rumble, for whatever reason, decides that it needs to have a new RTMP and stream key for every single stream. So it's one of the few little things that I've got to get done as we get started every day is go over and change the RTMP address and the stream key. And I guess for whatever reason I didn't do that. Like, if you're streaming on any other platform, you don't have to do this. Like, you just put your stream key in for your platform and then you go. And you're done. You hit the live button and you get started. Rumble has to make it more difficult. I think they're trying to gatekeep with it is what I think is happening with it. But yeah, sometimes just because, and especially because I've been doing streaming for as long as I have. 2 years, almost 3 years before we started. No, it has been over 3 years because we started in March of 2020. So yeah, for 3 years. I get up and do everything, and then just in the middle of April, we start with Rumble, and you know, it is hard to get some of your habits to go. So I got it fixed. We are on Rumble right now. So if you prefer a little bit more of an open speech platform over there, go check that out over on that side. We'll be monitoring the chat in all the platforms here coming up here today, and we'll even be looking through the live chat at the end of the show and getting a special thank you out to everybody here today. So tune in, stick around, have some fun. I think some of you are probably going to be on the road at this point coming back from whatever it was that you were doing over the weekend. I hope you had a fantastic time. I didn't hike this weekend. I thought about it, but I did go knock, I think, 100 golf balls out just trying to get my swing back again. I'm going to probably do some golfing this year. I hope so. I hope I can get a chance to do that and find somebody to go golfing with me. But yeah, I went to the driving range for Memorial Day weekend. Otherwise, I just kind of did chores and got this place cleaned up after a very, very, very lengthy 3 weeks at work. But that's enough about me. We've got a lot to go over here today. We're going to most likely spend the majority of the day talking about the debt ceiling deal. I didn't get it set up on the stack. I was thinking about it as I was going. Actually, I was going to find Thomas Massey's Twitter page before we got started, and then I realized that my Rumble wasn't loading up here, so let me go find that. Because we're going to be talking just a bit about that as well, because he's been one that's really been campaigning hard against this thing, so he's been bringing the receipts and everything else with that. But we're going to talk about that. We'll talk about the economic impact from the debt ceiling deal as it has been struck but not voted on, what it means. We'll be talking about DeSantis. We'll be talking about Lindsey Graham, Target, and a host of other things over here on Contemporary. So let's get into it. Before we get started, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, who, by the way, is no longer going to be on YouTube and DLive. So if those are your preferred platforms, get yourself over to Rumble. It is a great time. And, I mean, you can just search the R-Rated Conservative. I found him within, like, 30 seconds when I heard the announcement that he was not going to be on DLive anymore. So go check that out. Or the Porch Boys. Go check out Tweets by Brit, Mr. Behavior, the No Gimmicks Podcast, Silent Caster, Clown World Chronicles, and more as we build you a better news experience from the common man for the common man. That's right. Stop getting your news from people who wear suits that cost more than your houses. Get your news from people who are just like you. All right, and let's get started. Let's get my double off the screen here so we can actually go in and look at what's happening here. All right, we are going to start with our finance for the day. We're going to start with the Dow, as we always do. I wonder why my mic was off. Huh. How long has that been off? Even without the sound, is this still better than CNN? Huh. Let's see what we got over here. Looking in Well, you guys, if the mic was off for, I have no idea how long the mic was off for, you missed me completely forgetting the fact that this was a holiday weekend. And that the Dow was not open today. I wonder what popped that over. Because did you guys hear me talk about Revenge of the Sis at all, or? I don't know. Anyway, let's keep looking here. I'll look at your gas prices post-holiday here. Looks like we had one that dropped down to $3.30. Otherwise, we have a $3.40 sitting over at a Speedway, and a few $3.50s coming back up here. So a short drop under most stations. We will see if this continues to trend down towards the $3.30 range or jump back up to $3.60. Yeah, okay, we didn't hear what I had said about Revenge of the Sis. So, Dual Helix was talking about the Power Slap, which he found insufferable, which I don't know what that is, but I keep seeing it advertised on Rumble, so I am aware of the fact that it exists, but I don't know what it is. And then, yes, Revenge of the Sis, whom I do not care for in any stretch of the imagination. Revenge of the Sis was nuked on YouTube over the weekend, and I said something back to them too, and I said, you know, I don't care for what you guys do. I can't stand Revenge of the Sis, but I respect your right to do it, and I can't stand the fact that, you know, you just lost 7 years of work off one page. Alright, so that's where we are at with that. Let's keep going. Let's grab one from IBD. Dow Jones Futures rise on debt ceiling deal. Tesla, Nvidia is in focus. By the way, I wonder why it does keep doing that, why it keeps bumping over off of the regular open before coming in. I'm not sure. We'll figure that out at some point. We have an advertisement that I cannot X out of. That's weird. Let's get a refresh on this. All right, from Investors Business Daily, Dow Futures rise on debt ceiling deal. Tesla and Nvidia are in focus. From Ed Carson, Dow Futures rose modestly on Monday evening, along with the S&P and the Nasdaq, following a tentative Saturday night debt ceiling deal and Monday's Memorial Day holiday. Tesla is among several stocks near buy points. Nvidia made a number of artificial intelligence announcements over the weekend. The stock market rally last week was divergent, but ended on a hopeful note. The indices were solidly lower as of Wednesday. Techs then boomed. Man, I wish this thing would, like, when it moves to the advertisement, it shifts away the paragraph. Let's see. Meanwhile, signs of progress on a debt ceiling deal also buoyed markets Friday. Still, the overall weekly action was mixed, with a breadth at times stunningly anemic and a number of leading stocks struggling. After weeks of negotiations, Biden and McCarthy sealed a tentative debt limit deal on Saturday night. The agreement includes a 2-year debt limit increase and will keep non-defense, non-veterans discretionary spending about flat with current levels over 2 years. We'll be talking about this a little later. So we're going to hold off on this paragraph here. Looking at what to watch: Tesla, Netflix, Arista, On Semiconductor, NetEase, Mobileye, Smartsheet, Air Test Systems, and McKesson are near buy points. Arista, Netflix, On Semiconductor, NetEase, and Mobileye all flashed buy signals. Friday, Tesla, Air Systems, Smartsheet, and MKC are all close to being actionable. So I'm going to talk about Netflix for just a bit. And we talked about this with things that I hate last week. I'm not going to give you official financial advice, but I sold my Netflix. I had a little bit of that on my portfolio. I sold that. I'm looking at Netflix. I'm looking at what it's doing, where it goes, and I'm telling you right off the bat, it's not going to be a bunch of people jumping on and making new accounts. In fact, it's going to be a lot more people that are coming off and saying, screw this. I can find better entertainment on all the rest of them. I don't need to pay this extra $15 a month for something that I can't share with my family if they don't live in my same house. It's Rachel Maddow muting you because your audience is bigger. Yeah, I had somebody get all pissy with me over the weekend and, oh, look at your face. This is the face of somebody who podcasts to 300 people. I'm like, yeah, you tweet to 12 people, so. And yeah, the follower that did that over on Twitter had 12 people on his Twitter account. All right, NVIDIA is on the IBD leaderboard. Mobileye, Smartsheet are on the IBD 50. Arista Networks was Friday's IBD stock of the day. Smartsheet was Thursday's selection. On the futures, the Dow rose 0.2 versus fair value, the S&P advanced 0.3, and the NASDAQ climbed 0.5%. So that is what we are seeing for the futures. Kind of interested to see what happens there with the vote, but we'll see what happens with that. And our layoffs report. JP Morgan is on deck today. JP Morgan, who was so excited about the debt ceiling deal and saying that we're never going to see anything like this and the debt ceiling is going to be fine, well, they're cutting 500 jobs. From Matt Egan. JP Morgan Chase is letting go of about 500 employees this week across the bank, a spokesperson confirmed to CNN on Friday. The layoffs first reported by CNBC are taking place company-wide, but will focus mostly on technology and operations, JP Morgan said. A JP Morgan spokesperson said the company regularly reviews its business and customer needs and continues to hire in other areas. The bank has more than 13,000 total job openings and employs nearly 300,000 people. So it's not a huge loss to them, but I mean, that's 500 people who are going to be seeing a huge loss. The news comes just a day after JP Morgan informed about 1,000 First Republic Bank employees that they will no longer have jobs. Haha! JP Morgan acquired most of First Republic earlier this month after the San Francisco-based regional bank was seized by the government. And that's all that they have on that. Imagine that. I mean, you're sitting here, you're at the top of your game in the San Francisco market. At the complete top of your game. And then all of a sudden, there's a run on your bank, and it goes tits up within like 3 hours. And you're thinking to yourself, man, I'm just not going to have a job anymore because the federal government's going to seize it, and they're going to shut it down, and this, that, and the next thing. And then JP Morgan comes out and says, I'll be your knight in shining armor, I will take your job, and I will make your bank whole again. And then literally the next day they come on and say, yeah, you guys are out of here. Screw off. Yeah, they were all running through poop-filled streets to get to the bank. So 1,500 cuts from JP Morgan Chase, including pretty much everybody at First Republic. How many people were employed by First Republic? I'm curious. I'm going to use Google. And it's okay. I can use Google right now because it's not Pride Month. You know, according to Twitter, conservatives can't use Google because they put the pride flag up. $7,000. Okay, so they didn't cut all the jobs, but they cut a good portion of them, a good percentage of them. That still sucks. Alright. Let's get through this. Power slap is just people smacking each other. It's like boxing with absolutely no skill involved. Alright. Let's talk about the debt ceiling, because that is going to be our big news of the day. And we are going to start the day with the USA Today. This is prior to the deal. Feel very good, man! Biden projects optimism on debt deal as both sides whip up support from John Fritzie. President Biden projected... No, this is after the fact. I thought this was before the fact. President Biden projected optimism Monday that Congress will back his agreement to raise the nation's debt ceiling as the White House worked behind the scenes to rustle up votes. I feel very... Oh, man. That little girl, she was using yeah, you guys are still watching this? I feel very good about it. Biden told reporters outside the White House as he left Washington for Delaware, adding that he'd spoken to Mitch McConnell on Saturday. I spoke to a whole bunch of people and it feels good, man. Biden and McCarthy struck a tentative agreement on Saturday to raise the debt ceiling until 2025 in exchange for a number of Republican demands to cut spending. As the text of the agreement became public late Sunday, both sides were spending the Memorial Day weekend selling the plan. The agreement faces an early test on Tuesday in the House Rules Committee, which must approve the procedure for bringing the legislation to the floor. The admin has warned that Congress must raise the debt ceiling by June 5th or risk tripping the nation into the first default in its history, which is a lie still. When asked Monday what he would say to progressive Democrats who have reservations about the compromise, Biden said, "Talk to me." He declined to go into further detail, which means that his handler is going to go be whipping them into compliance. Corn Pop Canfield. So, and of course, we have the moron paid shills are out here to come back and tell us what they think about this. We're going to take our selection from JoJo from Joy's. But, I mean, we had Jersey, My Wife's Son Reliant, and the idiot twins, Sisson, and whatever the fuck the other one's name is. They were all coming back out here and pushing this, pretty much the same narrative. But we'll take JoJo from Joy's, because she was the first one that I saw of this. When it came to a possible default, the Republicans didn't stand a chance against President Biden. Yeah, he wasn't going to let it happen. Oh, he's so dreamy. Oh, I had a movement when I met him. He knew it and they knew it. And now, despite all the performative buffoonery, he will prevail. We will prevail. We will pay our bills and the Chaos Caucus will once again slink off into the shadows with their traitorous tails tucked in between the traitorous legs. And there was a lot of this going on with this. And again, JoJo from Jers is paid to shill. Paid to insult Republicans on every possible thing that she can. Before we go into some of the details of this, before I even saw the text of the deal, when the rumors were starting to swirl around, and the rumors wound up being true, I noted that Republicans in the Freedom Caucus especially are in a very, 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 very precarious position right now. And they are in a position that I would not want to be in by any stretch of the imagination. By any measure, anything at all. I would never want to be in this situation. That's why I titled this episode, The Debt Ceiling Kobayashi Maru. Because the Freedom Caucus is right now in a no-win scenario. Whatsoever. By their voters, by the people who are coming to them and saying, we want you to do this. We want you to come out for this. Now, first off, this comes with the assumption that Democrats don't come back out and torpedo this thing. Because we needed to have a clean bill and nothing else is acceptable. If they all get on board with this conversation I'm about to have is moot. This is going under the assumption that this passes on party lines. But as a Freedom Caucus member, I don't know what I would do about this. I don't. My constituents want me to come in and give the thumbs down to this. They want more concessions and more cuts. They want the 87,000 IRS agents, which that number was trimmed. Some of the funding for that was trimmed, but there's still going to be a good 80,000 that are coming out for that. They want the student debt forgiveness nixed. That is supposedly still going to be in on this. They got some of the work requirements. They got not as much flat spending as we were promised in the original House bill. And if I am not mistaken, and I have not read all 99 pages of this, we're at a point where this is not a fixed debt ceiling that's coming up here. This is going to be a suspended debt ceiling. That right there would have me nuking this. But I don't know where I would go. The other end of this is we are sitting in a position where our recession is imminent. We can put lipstick on a pig as much as we want. We can come back out and make everything look all happy, look all nice and everything else. The recession is imminent. And if this thing bombs, which is part of the reason I think the Democrats might go for it, if this thing bombs because the Freedom Caucus torpedoed it, the Freedom Caucus is holding the bag. And every part of the mainstream media will be out there in force saying, the recession came because of the debt ceiling. Whereas if this passes, because this is for the most part a Democrat deal, a President Biden deal, Democrats are holding the bag when the recession comes. So that is where we're at with that, and it's not an enviable position to be in. Silentcaster says, so what did Kevin McCarthy and all these negotiations actually do? Nothing. They didn't do a damn thing. I can get the Odyssey chat up here, see if people actually talk about this or not. I don't think so, but we'll see. I think Odyssey might be dead. Let's go, Brandon. I agree. So it's Dual Helix, quoting Joe Biden from Christmas of 2022. Biden won't stand a chance if he doesn't try to push student loan forgiveness. Well, that's still embattled in the courts. Depends on if his voters are stupid enough to fall for it again. Yeah, Odyssey is pretty dead. That's a pretty dead platform. I don't know, I got some traction on it when I first started, but as soon as I switched over to Rumble, not so much anymore. Alright, let's grab one for the Associated Press. Biden and GOP reached tentative deal to raise the debt ceiling and avoid calamitous U.S. default, from Lisa Mascaro, Mary Clark Jelinek, and Zeke Miller, and Kevin Freaking. This freaking guy, seriously. President Biden and House Speaker McCarthy reached an agreement in principle to raise the nation's legal debt ceiling late Saturday as they raced to strike a deal to limit federal spending and avert a potentially disastrous U.S. default. However, the agreement risks angering both Democrat and Republican sides, with the concessions made to compromise. Negotiators agreed to some Republican demands for increased work requirements for recipients of food stamps that had sparked an uproar from House Democrats as a non-starter. Support from both parties will be needed to win congressional approval next week before the government's projected June 5th debt default. The Democratic president and Republican speaker reached the agreement after the two spoke earlier Saturday evening by phone. The country and the world have been watching and waiting for a resolution to a political standoff that threatened the U.S. and global economies. That's a little bit conceited, but not by a whole hell of a lot. Let me get this tab up over here, so I remember to go back and grab it when we get into what is in this particular bill. Let's see. The agreement represents a compromise, which means not everyone gets what they want, Biden said in a statement late Saturday night, which is not something Democrats are used to hearing. That's the responsibility of governing. Biden called the agreement good news for the American people because it prevents what could have been a catastrophic default that would have led to an economic recession, retirement accounts devastated, and millions of jobs lost. That's coming no matter what. That's coming. Lipstick on a pig, though. McCarthy, in brief remarks at the Capitol, said, we still have a lot of work to do. I'm sorry, I was doing that in Biden voice before I realized that it wasn't actually Biden speaking through McCarthy, and it actually was McCarthy. But the Republican speaker said, and I'll believe this is an agreement in principle that's worthy of the American people. With the outlines of a deal in place, the legislative package could be drafted and shared with lawmakers in time for a House vote as soon as Wednesday, and later in the Senate. Central to the package is a 2-year budget deal that would hold spending flat for 2024 and increase it by 1% for 2025 in exchange for raising the debt limit for 2 years, pushing the volatile political issue past the next presidential election. Is it an election or a selection, though? Oops, can I say that on YouTube? Driving hard for a deal to impose tougher work requirements on government aid recipients, Republicans achieved some but not all of what they wanted. The agreement would raise the age for existing work requirements on able-bodied adults without children from 49 to 54, but Biden was able to secure waivers for veterans and the homeless. Interesting. The two sides had also reached for an ambitious overhaul of federal permitting to ease developments of energy projects and transmission lines. Instead, the agreement would put in place changes in the landmark 70s Natural Environmental Policy Act that will designate a single lead agency to develop environmental reviews in hopes of streamlining the process. The deal came together after Treasury Secretary Yellen told Congress that the U.S. could default on its debt obligations by June 5th, 4 days later than previously estimated if lawmakers did not act in time to raise the federal debt ceiling. The extended X date gave the two sides a bit of extra time as they scrambled for a deal. Biden also spoke earlier in the day with Democrat leaders in Congress to discuss the status of the talks. The Republican House Speaker gathered top allies behind closed doors at the Capitol as negotiators pushed for a deal that would avoid first-ever government default while making spending cuts the House Republicans are demanding. But as another day dragged on with financial disaster looming closer, it appeared that some of the problems over policy issues that dogged talks all weekend remained unresolved. Well, again, we could have been doing this in February. But we've got to do every single thing that we do at the very, very last second. Both sides have suggested one of the main holdups was the GOP effort to expand work requirements for recipients of food stamps and other federal aid programs, a longtime Republican goal. The Democrats have strenuously opposed. The White House said the Republican proposals were cruel and senseless, and then turned around and agreed with them. Biden has said the work requirements for Medicaid would be a non-starter. He had seemed potentially open to negotiating changes on food stamps, now known as Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, despite objections from rank-and-file Democrats. McCarthy, who dashed out before the lunch hour Saturday and arrived back at the Capitol with a big box of takeout, declined to elaborate on those discussions. One of his negotiators, Garrett Graves, said there was not a chance the Republicans might relent on the work requirements issue. So that is where we're at with that. I wanted to grab Thomas Massey's Twitter page because he's got a lot of stuff about this, more than what like the Associated Press and whatnot are going to come back and do. So we're going to look just through some of his feed here for a moment. Bull says, "Tell me like I'm it what you're trying to say." Thomas Massey says, "We'll be taking out a second mortgage this week to pay off the credit cards, but it's not until September that we're actually buying the bass boat, the tanning bed, and the big screen TV." On the roadmap, there are at least 5 things Congress calls spending: budgets from budget committees, authorizations to spend money from various committees, appropriations from appropriations committees, entitlements, non-discretionary spending by law, and the debt limit. And he actually does have the bill here, which a lot of people have already gone through and picked out their non-starters with it. So, Radical MAGA Extremist for Jesus Deplorable says, "I found this in just a few minutes. This is over $6 trillion in discretionary spending in 4 years. That's $6 trillion above what's budgeted for special purposes." And this is from the bill. Let's see. Additional spending limits for purposes of Section 302, subsection A, paragraph 5 of the Congressional Budget and Impoundment Control Act of 1974. In the following applicable fiscal years, the following discretionary spending limits shall apply. 2026, $1,621,959,000,000. 27, $1,638,179,000,000. Fiscal year 2028, $1,654,580,000,000. And fiscal year 2029, $1,671,106,000,000. But we've got the bill right here. As of right now, this is going through the Committee on Rules, so it does have a number now. When he posted it the first time, it didn't have a resolution number. And we can look at the text of H.R. 3746. Technically still doesn't have a number on it. And they're calling this, with $6 trillion of discretionary spending, the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2023. They've got a large number of table of contents, most of which are a recession of unobligated funds. And this is on too. It's 99 pages, plus including the table of contents. So I should have read it by this point, but I mean, it was the holiday weekend as well, which, I mean, that's a big part of the reason they did this right now, is to get in for the holiday weekend. Let's see. But right on the discretionary spending limits for right off the top for fiscal year 2024. For the revised security category, $886,349,000,000 in new budget authority. For the revised non-security category, $703,651,000,000. So that's $1.5 trillion by itself. And then a little bit more, like more 1.6 trillion for fiscal year 2025. And then just what we read going down the path for 26 through 29 on top of it. But I'm going to put this into the chat. So you guys can see this. Let's see. Odyssey has potential, but its search is still better than Rumble. Government shutdown is in 2 weeks. No, I can't get that lucky. I'm gonna suck. It's gonna suck for all those migrants when their EBT cards stop working. That's never gonna happen. Old man Biden wouldn't survive 5 minutes alone with me, and I wouldn't even touch him. I'd just be speaking truth while walking in circles around him. He'd get dizzy and fall down. He needs to get a clue and go roll an egg. So there is the bill. Again, 99 pages. Let's go over to the main chat and let's get this over here. Get that up there so you guys can go back and do that. Let me throw that in the Discord too here real quick. I'm going to put that in topic chat because we've actually been talking about it. Come on. There we go. But yeah, it's definitely worth looking at. Alright, we got another one from the Associated Press here. Debt ceiling deal. What's in, what's out of the bill to avert a U.S. default? Silentcaster says, Nancy Pelosi was a better speaker. I may agree with her less, but she actually was tough. Nancy Pelosi also could get the disparate factions of her party into line with each other. I think sometimes with the threat of committee assignments that I don't know that McCarthy is willing to do. What I mean by that is that the House Progressive Caucus, which didn't agree with a lot of Nancy Pelosi's agenda, did not dare disagree with her publicly or vote against her. I don't know if you guys noticed that or not. What the fuck is rescission? Rescinding of funds is what rescission is. Yeah, Mograi says, without Clyburn, I don't see Nancy keeping power for as long as she did. That's very fair. Alright, we gotta keep going. This is from Kevin Freaking, Farnoosh Amiri, and Stephen Groves. The details: the deal between President Biden and House Speaker McCarthy was released on Sunday in the form of a 99-page bill that would suspend the nation's debt limit through 2025 to avoid a federal default while limiting government spending. I don't understand, by the way, the suspension of the ceiling. This would actually probably push me into the torpedo this thing camp. What I mean when I say that is, when we went through and we saw the original House bill, there was a debt ceiling cap, and it was at, I think, just shy of $34 trillion. It gave us basically $2 trillion to get through the election. But now they're just coming out and openly suspending, and I don't agree with that. The Democrat president and Republican speaker are trying to win over lawmakers to the plan in time to avert a default that would shake the global economy, but Congress will be scrutinizing and debating the legislation, which also includes provisions to fund medical care for veterans, change work requirements for some recipients of government aid, and streamline environmental reviews for energy projects. McCarthy said the House will vote on the legislation Wednesday, giving the Senate time to consider it before June 5th. The date when Janet Yellen said the U.S. could default on the debt obligations if lawmakers did not act in time. Some hardline conservatives expressed early concerns that the compromise does not cut future deficits enough, while Democrats have been worried about the proposed changes to work requirements and programs such as food stamps. With the details of the deal not clear, here's what's in and out. 2-year debt limit suspension. No. Bad. Bad. Do I have a newspaper over here I can roll up? I've got a notebook. No. No. Bad. 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 The agreement would keep non-defense spending roughly flat in the 2024 fiscal year and increase it by 1% the following year. But it's defense that's going to be driving the debt limit up because we've got Ukraine to worry about. And increase it by 1% the following year as well as suspend the debt limit until January 2025, past the next presidential election. For the next fiscal year, the bill matches Biden's proposed defense budget of $886 billion and allows $704 billion for non-defense spending. We don't need that big of a defense budget. The bill also requires Congress to approve 12 annual spending bills or face a snapback to spending limits from the previous year, which would mean a 1% cut. Veterans care. The agreement would fully fund medical care for veterans at the levels included in Biden's proposed 2024 budget blueprint, including a fund dedicated to veterans who have been exposed to toxic substances or environmental hazards. Biden sought roughly $20.3 billion for a toxic exposure fund in this budget. Okay, how much is actually going to go towards toxic exposed vets? Unspent COVID money. The agreement will rescind about $30 billion in unspent coronavirus relief money. The Congress approved through previous bills that claws back unobligated money from dozens of federal programs that received aid during the pandemic, including rental assistance, small business loans, and broadband for rural areas, which has nothing to do with the pandemic, by the way. IRS funding. Republicans targeted money the IRS was allotted last year to crack down on tax fraud. The bill bites into some IRS funding, rescinding $1.4 billion. So we only get 80,000 new agents to come after those of us in the middle class, not 87,000. Work requirements, we've discussed that already. Bringing the maximum age for work requirements to 54 from 49. But the provision expires, bringing the maximum age back down to 49 5 years later in 2023. No. Bad. The agreement would also make it slightly harder for states to waive work requirements for SNAP for certain individuals. Current law allows states to issue some exemptions to the work rule on a discretionary basis, but limits how many people can be exempted. The agreement would lower the number of exemptions that a state can issue and curb states' ability to carry over the number of exemptions that they can hand out from month to month. Okay. I mean, if the programs are going to be federally funded, then they get a say in them. I would prefer that they be entirely state-funded, but apparently that just doesn't work anymore. Speeding up energy projects. The deal puts in place changes in the national environmental policy for the first time in nearly 4 decades that would designate a single lead agency to develop and schedule environmental reviews in hopes of streamlining the process. It also simplifies some of the requirements for environmental reviews, including placing length limitations on environmental assessments and impact statements. Agencies will be given 1 year to complete environmental reviews, and projects that are deemed to have complex impacts on the environment will need to be reviewed within 2 years. The bill also gives special treatment to the Mountain Valley Pipeline, a West Virginia natural gas pipeline championed by Manchin and Shelley Moore Capito, by approving all of its outstanding permit requests, which is a vote to Manchin. And I hope that he sees through it, because they screwed him the last time on this. Student loans. Republicans have long sought to reel back the Biden administration's efforts to provide student loan relief aid to millions of borrowers during the pandemic, while the GOP proposal to rescind the White House's plan to waive $10,000 to $20,000 in debt for nearly all borrowers failed to make it into the package. Quelle surprise. Biden agreed to put an end to the pause on the student loan repayment. That's going to cost you in 2024. That's going to cost you. The fate of student loan relief, meanwhile, will be decided at the Supreme Court, which is dominated 6-3 by the conservative wing. During oral arguments in the case, several of the justices expressed deep skepticism about the legality of Biden's plan. A decision is expected before the end of June. What's left out? Oh, here's the only thing that's left out. House Republicans passed legislation last month that would have created new work requirements for Medicaid. Also absent from the final deal is the GOP proposal to repeal many of the clean energy tax credits Democrats passed in party line votes last year to boost the production and consumption of clean energy. So basically, McCarthy just gave away everything that Biden wanted. And left out some of the most important parts of this. Let's focus a little bit on the pipeline. From Politico, debt ceiling deal includes surprise approval of natural gas pipeline championed by Manchin. From Josh Siegel, the text of the debt ceiling bill released on Sunday would approve all the remaining permits to complete the stalled Mountain Valley Pipeline, delivering a big win for West Virginia and its senators Manchin and Capito. But the backing of the pipeline would deliver gas from West Virginia into the southeast is sure to set off bitter complaints from the environmental groups that fought its construction for years and turned the project into a symbol of their struggle against fossil fuels. And after what the Supreme Court did last week, I don't think anybody cares. Manchin hailed the bill's language, saying, "Finishing that pipeline would lower energy costs for the U.S. and West Virginia. And a mountain mama. I'm proud to have fought for this critical project and have secured the bipartisan support necessary to get it across the finish line," he said in a statement. The bill agreed by the White House and House Republicans must still be approved by both chambers of Congress, which that might be a poison pill right there to pull the Democrats off of it, which is expected to happen in the coming week. Mountain Valley Pipeline would mean for American jobs and domestic energy production. I am thrilled it's included in the debt ceiling package that avoids default, Capito, Republicans said in a statement. Despite delay after delay, we continue to fight to get this critical natural gas pipeline up and running, and its inclusion in the big deal is a significant victory for the future of West Virginia. So that's jobs, that's speculation, and potentially an ease on natural gas prices even before a cubic inch of natural gas goes through this pipeline. Because with it being basically impending, the natural gas companies are going to basically adjust their prices to think, okay, well, we're going to get a bigger volume going to the southeast. ABC, key questions and takeaways from the debt ceiling deal. From ABC News. After months of back and forth, House Republicans in the White House this weekend unveiled a deal on raising the nation's $31.4 trillion borrowing limit while implementing some caps on government spending and other policy changes. President Biden has vowed to sign the debt deal if it passes the House and Senate. A House vote is slated for Wednesday. What's in the debt ceiling? Well, we took care of all that here. When does it have to pass? The Treasury Secretary has cautioned the estimates of the so-called X date for a default can vary. She most recently predicted the deadline to be June 5th, based on the most recent available data. McCarthy said that the House will vote on the bill on Wednesday. The Senate, which returns to Washington on Tuesday, will then begin processing the legislation on Wednesday night. Chuck U. Schumer told Democrats in a letter. But under the chamber's rules, it would take only one lawmaker to possibly delay the approval for up to a week past the X date. Mike Lee has threatened just that unless he feels the deal is substantial spending and budgetary reform. And by the way, Rand Paul also exists. Schumer appeared to reference such obstacles in his letter to Democrats. Due to the time it may take to process the legislation in the Senate without cooperation, senators should prepare for potential Friday and weekend votes. Will the ceiling bill pass? I don't think it will, honestly. Dual Helix says this is just an opportunity for both sides to put in a bunch of pork fat. They were going to cut a bunch of stuff anyway. They need an excuse to start taking directly from the people blatantly. Yeah. Will this pass? I don't know if this will pass, honestly. I think there is enough reason for Democrats to torpedo it in the House based on the pipeline project and what they think that their constituents will do. And I think the Freedom Caucus says hell no. I think this is probably closer to party line in the Senate, and I believe this bill can be filibustered. I don't know if this bill passes or not. I really don't. Not this close to an election year. I can see 50-50 on this for both yes and no. Silent Caster says definitely yes. I'm still 50-50 on it. Dual Helix says Rand Paul is semi-foldable. Silent Caster says you're giving Senate Republicans way too much credit. I don't know. I'm still thinking party line. But we'll watch this and see. The global markets cheer for the U.S. debt ceiling deal fade. from Laura He and Hannah Ziadi. European stocks and oil prices gave up early gains on Monday, but U.S. stock futures stayed positive following weekend news of an agreement that could avert a catastrophic U.S. debt default. Germany's DAX closed 0.2% lower, with France's CAC 40 falling by a similar margin after both posted gains earlier in the day. In Asia, the Nikkei 225 closed at a 33-year high, boosted by optimism over the debt ceiling and a weaker yen, which lifted exporters. The index has rallied nearly 20% this year. US and UK markets are closed Monday for a bank holiday, affecting trading volumes in Europe. Dow futures and Nasdaq futures rose about 0.35, with the S&P up 0.3. U.S. markets made gains on Friday on reports that Biden and House Speaker McCarthy were nearing a deal to allow the U.S. government to keep paying its bills. Which is interesting because investors across the world are having very, very mixed reviews about this. And again, I don't know where this goes. Silent Caster says, Graham, Murkowski, Collins, Cornyn, Romney, they'll all vote for it. Probably McConnell too. See, Graham is a wild card. Murkowski, Collins, and Romney, yes. Cornyn and Graham in that list, I would say wild card. I feel like Rand bends to about 89 degrees, but Ron has never folded. That's an interesting way to put it, dual helix. So, let's see, what else? Brent crude fell 0.5% to $76.58 a barrel, reversing gains of a similar magnitude earlier in the day. WTI, West Texas Intermediate, U.S. benchmark fell 0.2 to trade at $72.51 a barrel. Turkey's lira, meanwhile, sank to 2010 to the U.S. dollar, a new record low. Recep Tayyip Erdogan secured a victory in Sunday's presidential election, stretching his rule to a third decade. Erdogan told CNN 10 days ago that he would continue with his unorthodox policy of cutting interest rates to reduce inflation if re-elected. So that's where the markets are going. Oil is rising after this. Oil rises after U.S. leaders strike provisional debt deal, coming to CNBC from Reuters. Oil prices rose on Monday after U.S. leaders reached a tentative deal. Brent crude climbed 66 cents or 0.9 to $77.61 a barrel by 0247 GMT, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate was at $73.42 a barrel, up 75 cents or 1%. Trade is expected to be subdued on Monday because of the UK and US holiday. What do you want to bet that we see 370 in Madison by the end of the week? Tim Pool is having a hard time dancing around to keep close to the line. I have not listened to Tim Pool in like forever. I tried over the weekend, just while I was working, because there wasn't really anything going on at work. But I'm like, man, I'd rather listen to Legend of Zelda stuff. I don't like listening to politics talk when I'm not on camera. It's weird because I was religious about it for a long time. Alright, some of the reaction to this. And then we'll go on to talk about DeSantis. From the Daily Wire, Dusty Johnson on debt ceiling agreement. Big get for Republicans, from Daily Wire News. Dusty Johnson said during an interview over the weekend that the tentative debt ceiling agreement that Republicans have reached with Democrats is a big win for the Republican Party. I mean, this is going to cut non-defense and non-VA spending back to 2022 levels, Johnson told CNN's Jake Tapper on State of the Union. This is a big get for Republicans. That's what we had in the Limit, Save, and Grow. It's going to save $1.5 trillion over the course of the next 10 years. If that was the actual truth, we're going to save $1.5 trillion, we wouldn't need to suspend the debt ceiling. It also, for 6 years, establishes caps at 1%, so we can slow the growth of spending, he added. When asked about criticisms that McCarthy gave up too much and could have gotten more, Johnson said the overwhelming majority of conservative members supported it. I'm the head of the group of 75 pragmatic conservatives called the Main Street Caucus. And so when we say conservatives are against it, I want to make it clear I don't know a single one of the mainstream caucus conservatives who isn't voting for it. He later acknowledged some of the members of the House Freedom Caucus might be against it, but many will vote for it. Let's see if this is queued up first. No, but it's kind of short, so we can probably get through most of it.
To lift the nation's borrowing cap and avert a looming fiscal catastrophe, with the U.S. set to run out of money to pay its bills as early as Monday, June 5th. But a big question remains. Can they now get this deal passed in time? President Biden acknowledged last night that the agreement is, quote, a compromise, which means not everyone gets what they want, unquote. And already we know about deep concerns from progressives and from conservatives. McCarthy, on a call with Republicans last night, reportedly said the Democrats did not get a single thing they wanted in the deal. And McCarthy emphasized what the GOP got in exchange for raising the debt limit, capping non-defense.
The Democrats got everything they wanted. The hell are you talking about?
Domestic spending, canceling billions in IRS funding, and temporarily imposing work requirements on childless, able-bodied adults younger than 55 who receive food stamps. President Biden says the agreement protects Democratic priorities and legislative accomplishments. One could also note that the deal lifts the nation's debt limit for 2 years, avoiding a messy fight just ahead of the 2024 election. And in general, the cuts are not as deep as many House Republicans wanted and many House Democrats feared. Joining us now, a Republican leader who helped negotiate this deal, Congressman Dusty Johnson of South Dakota. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us. So what can you tell us about the specifics of what's in this agreement, and why do you think it's a good deal for House Republicans to vote for?
Yeah, I think you did a good job of providing the outlines as far as the spending. I mean, this is going to cut non-defense and non-VA spending back to 2022 levels. That is a big get for Republicans. That's what we had in Limit, Save, Grow. And it's going to save $1.5 trillion over the course of the next 10 years. It also, for 6 years, establishes caps at 1% so we can slow the growth of spending. But Jake, two things I want to hit that your graphic did not have. First off, late last night, a new provision was agreed to by the White House and the Speaker, whereby we're going to unlock American energy. We are going to provide shot clocks for NEPA review, environmental review of 12 months and 24 months. That is going to help, whether you like renewable energy or traditional energy, this is going to help unlock that energy.
Speed up the process.
Speed up the process. Okay. You know, Germany and France, the same kind of project they would get done in 2 years. It takes us 7 years, Jake. So we do need reform here. And obviously Democrats like Buttigieg and Manchin have talked about doing this. Well, now we're going to get it done. And then finally, just a big thing, it's administrative pay-go. When you have the administration step forward and propose some vast new regulation that's going to cost hundreds of billions of dollars, now they have to go find the money within the existing bureaucracy. It is a huge strike against a growing regulatory state.
Yeah, that's one of the things that members of Congress complain about the most, not just with Democratic administrations, but Republicans passing a law and not allocating money to make sure the law goes through. We're hearing a lot of grumbling from conservatives in your caucus. Congressman Ken Buck called this deal a debt ceiling surrender. Congressman Ralph Norman said it was insanity. Congressman Bob Good tweeted that no one claiming to be a conservative could justify a yes vote. Their basic criticism is that McCarthy gave up too much and could have gotten more. What do you say to that?
Well, I'm the head of a group of 75 pragmatic conservatives called the Main Street Caucus. And so when we say conservatives are against it, I want to make it clear, I don't know a single one of the mainstream caucus conservatives.
Caucus conservatives.
And even some of them, there will be Freedom Caucus people who vote for this package. So when you're saying that conservatives have concerns, it is really the most colorful conservatives. Some of those guys you mentioned didn't vote for the thing when it was kind of a Republican wish list, Limit, Save, Grow. Those votes were never really in play. We get that, but overwhelmingly, Republicans in this conference are going to support the deal. How could they not? It is a fantastic deal.
How many votes do you think you're going to get? How many votes can you afford to lose?
I Actually, I am interested in what he has to say.
We're
about
starting
that.
the whipping process now.
Okay.
I have talked to maybe between 2 and 3 dozen Republican members. I have not had a single one of them tell me I can't support that.
Well, I just gave you the names of 3 you can call maybe.
Well,
Buck, Norman, and Good, who might have some thoughts.
I'm not sure having Dusty Johnson call Bob Good is the perfect way to get his vote. But and let's be honest, Bob Good will not vote for this thing, and it doesn't matter if Mother Teresa came back from the dead and called him. He's not voting for it. He was never going to.
Wow.
This is going to pass.
Wow,
So,
what a
70
set of propaganda. Jeez. Anyway, that's what we have going on for that. All right, let's talk about Ted Cruz. Cruz pans McCarthy's claim the debt deal has nothing for Dems. There are 4 trillion things. From Sarah Fortinsky. Ted Cruz panned Speaker McCarthy for claiming the debt limit didn't have one thing for Democrats, saying, there are 4 trillion things. He's right, there's not one thing for Dems, there's 4 trillion things. A blank check for Democrats plus 87,000 things. New IRS agents to harass Americans. All in exchange for virtually eliminating all of the House's spending cuts, Cruz wrote in a tweet on Sunday. Cruz joined a group of Republicans from both chambers attacking the Speaker for the deal, which was struck Saturday night between McCarthy and President Brandon, and would raise the debt limit for 2 years while capping spending in order to avert a national default. Cruz, in saying there are 4 trillion things in the deal for Democrats, was likely referring to a figure that is an estimate of the amount of debt has to increase in order for the country to extend borrowing for 2 years. Reuters reported the deal lifts the cap by $4 trillion, while it suspends it, so it doesn't lift it at all. It just says, keep spending until you're done spending. You've got 2 years to cram in as much as you want. Did all actions refer to the House Committee on Foreign Affairs? Okay. I'll look into that afterwards. Right now, the Democrats are very upset. The one thing Hakeem Jeffries told me, there's nothing in the bill for them. There's not one thing in the bill for Democrats, McCarthy said on Fox News Sunday. That's a lie. The deal agreed to in principle by the White House, and McCarthy still needs to pass the House and Senate. Bill text was released on Sunday afternoon. DeSantis weighing in on this. DeSantis dunks on debt deal. We're careening towards bankruptcy. From Kiera Frazier. Ron DeSantis on Monday slammed the bipartisan debt ceiling deal, saying the country was still careening towards bankruptcy. And look, prior to this deal, our country was careening towards bankruptcy, and after this deal, our country will still be careening towards bankruptcy. And to say you can do $4 trillion of increases in the next year and a half, I mean, that's a massive amount of spending. DeSantis, who recently announced his 2024 presidential bid, said on Fox and Friends. DeSantis' comments came as the White House and Republican congressional leaders reached a tentative deal late Saturday to raise the nation's debt ceiling, narrowly averting a default. Just days before the projected June 5th deadline, President Biden and Speaker McCarthy must now work to get the needed support from their respective parties in Congress. Ralph Norman says it's insanity. The White House's message to Democrats was skeptical of the debt ceiling agreement is that it could have been much worse. Look, okay, I think that we've gotten ourselves on a trajectory here, really since March of 2020, with some of the COVID spending and totally reset the budget. And they're sticking with that, and I think that's just going to be totally inadequate to get us to a better spot, DeSantis said. Other candidates have not weighed in on the deal so far. Well, we'll see. From Fox News, Lindsey Graham we'll be talking about in a bit more detail a little bit later. We don't run out of time. I kind of anticipated we're going to spend most of the day talking about this. But I still got 50 minutes, so we'll see what we can get through with that. Lindsey Graham vowed to undo the absurd bipartisan debt deal. Calls it a disaster for defense, sugar. From Brandon Gillespie. Lindsey Graham vowed on Monday he would do everything within his power to undo the bipartisan debt ceiling deal and the disaster. He said it would be for America's defense. Well, look, sugar, I will use all the powers available to me in the Senate to have amendment votes to undo this catastrophe for defense. I support raising the debt limit for 90 days to give us a chance to correct this disaster for defense. Have total disgust for political leaders' decision to make it remotely possible to gut our national security apparatus at a time of great peril. Take this absurd idea off the table, he added. In true neocon fashion, of course. Earlier in the afternoon, he repeated criticism he leveled against the defense spending aspects of the deal on Sunday, calling it welcome news to China, and suggested it ran counter to Democrats and Republicans screaming about the rising and growing threat of China. How far the party of Ronald Reagan has fallen. The Biden defense budget has been ridiculed by Democrats for over a year, he wrote on Twitter. As the share of GDP spent on defense, the Biden budget matches and eventually dips below its lowest level in modern history. That's not a bad thing, Graham. Nothing in this bill will provide weapons or technology to help Ukraine defeat Putin and make the world more stable. So he's just saying the quiet part out loud at this point. To Biden, McConnell, and McCarthy, what are we going to do about our own national defense as well as support of Ukraine? We need to know. Well, we can cut the support of Ukraine. During an appearance on Fox News Sunday, Graham warned McCarthy against slashing the defense budget in order to reach a deal on the debt ceiling. His comments came prior to the release of the full details of the deal. Number one, I respect Kevin McCarthy. I want to raise the debt ceiling. It would be irresponsible not to do it. I want to control spending. I'd like to have a smaller IRS. I'd like to claw back the unused COVID money. I know you can't get the perfect, but what I will not do is adopt the Biden defense budget and call it a success. Well, it's like the one good thing Biden is doing is cutting all of our military spending. We spend way too much on that. I got two more on this from NBC. More Dusty Johnson. You know what? I'm going to skip this one. This is Dusty Johnson. You know, let's listen to it. This is Dusty Johnson, NBC. Republicans oppose the debt deal, forget the power of incrementalism. Let's listen. This is on Meet the Depressed.
Problem Solvers Caucus. Congressman Johnson, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Interesting times.
I know, and you had a spirited reaction to all of our great reporting that you just heard. Let me just ask you, though, off the bat. I mean, Julie obviously said you have been defending this deal. So just to put a fine point on it, are you a yes on voting on this deal?
I am a yes on this deal. I think it's a no-brainer. And when I'm talking to other members, Kristen, who are still working through the bill, I tell them four things. This is an historic agreement in four ways. Number one, this is the biggest spending reduction in the history of our country. Number two, it's the largest clawback or rescission of funds in the history of our country. In fact, it's bigger than all of the other rescissions combined.
You're talking about the COVID funds.
I'm talking about $29 billion in COVID funds. Number three, it is the single largest change to environmental permitting, siting of energy projects since the passage of NEPA in 1970. And number four, it's the biggest change to welfare reform in our country since 1996. This is historic.
Well, as you know, some members of your party are not sold. And let me read you what some of them have said. Julie alluded to some of this. Ken Buck tweeted, Kevin McCarthy has endorsed a debt ceiling deal that will ensure our country hits $35 trillion in debt in less than 2 years. Joe Biden and Democrats would now get a free pass on defending their reckless spending before the next election. This deal must be rejected. Ralph Northam tweeted, Norman, I should say, tweeted, this deal is insanity. A $4 trillion debt ceiling increase with virtually no cuts is not what we agreed to. Not going to vote to bankrupt our country. The American people deserve better. What is your message to those members of your own party who say the cuts do not go far enough?
And to provide some context first, yeah, there are 4 or 5 outspoken members that are putting out these tweets every day. There are 10 or 20 times more members who are talking about the historic wins in this bill. Now, I know we always give the loudest microphone to those with the most strident message. But
hey, I use tweets for my reporting.
the reality is this, our government is spending too much money. We need to turn this ship of state around, but it's an aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
And you do not turn an aircraft carrier on a dime. And so what I say to my friends on the far right, the Democrats have grown government over the last 60 years because they understand the power of incrementalism. I think part of the problem with Republicans is that we are so often focused on hitting the Hail Mary pass that we forget about the power of incrementalism. This is going to spend less money next year. That is not sufficient. That does not solve all the problems of this country, but it's a big win. Let's put it in our pocket and get another win.
This is not a win. None of this is a win. Where is this guy? South Dakota? Come on, South Dakota, do better than this. Nothing here is a win. Where's the power of incrementalism? Okay, so we've ticked down a baby fraction incrementally. A 1% decrease while still giving away everything off of this. All right, last one. If we do go down into the pits of that which shall not be named. From the Blaze, more Americans will blame Biden for the debt default than will blame Republicans, poll finds. From Carlos Garcia, I wonder why CNN didn't report this one. A poll found that more Americans would blame President Biden if the debt ceiling crisis leads to a credit default than would blame congressional Republicans. The results were included in a Fox News poll of registered voters about the negotiations over raising the debt ceiling. The poll found that 47% of Americans polled said that they would blame Biden for the debt default, while only 44% said they would blame congressional Republicans. The poll showed a dramatic reversal compared to results from the 2011 debt ceiling fight, when 47% of Americans blamed Republicans and only 32% blamed Barack Obama, who was president at the time. While a majority of Americans believe a credit default would be catastrophic for the U.S., many believe the consequences were being exaggerated. 63% said it would be catastrophic, while only 32% said it was an exaggeration. That's another reversal from similar poll in 2011 when only 39% said a default would be catastrophic, while 55% said it was an exaggeration. The poll was conducted between May 19th and May 22nd and had an error margin of plus or minus 3 points. I would not take this poll as gospel. It is still, remember, an outlier. It is a situation by which they took one poll. Now, if we had an aggregate, a spread of something like this, which I didn't see anything on RCP for this, when I went looking for who blames who, but I would like to see maybe 6 or 8 polls conducted over a month or so, and seeing the pattern as well, going from February on to now, on who Americans would blame. All right, let's talk DeSantis. Let's get the live chat back up here. I'm guessing Dual Helix is not a fan of Jared Polis. Let's see. Secretary of Broadcasting, Board of Governors are authorized to use funds appropriated or otherwise made available for public diplomacy information programs to provide preparation, dissemination, and use of information intended for foreign audience abroad about the U.S., its people, and its policies. Through press publications, radio, motion pictures, internet, and other information media, include social media, through information centers, instructors, and other direct or indirect means of communication. See this Board of Governors? This is what let them lie to you. This is what gave them keys to the bullshit machine. If I could write a political cartoon, I'd make a pic of Jared Polis riding a cow labeled BS machine. I hear that ChatGPT can do that for you. With a tube coming out of it, but it's leading to grandma's breathing machines in the ER. Oof. And him getting paid by a conveyor coming out of one of the useless nurses on their phones' butts. Vicious. Thank you, Dual Helix, on the other side. It's not even a push. This is the Democrats having blackjack and the Republicans doubling down on a 5, hoping to catch up. Nice. I got that reference. Alright, let's talk DeSantis. Starting with the Daily Wire. DeSantis blasts Trump's bizarre attacks during Shapiro interview. He's been attacking me by moving left. From Daily Wire News. There's a reason for that, by the way. I don't necessarily agree with it, but there's a reason that he's been going that direction and attacking you by moving left. Let's read. Ron DeSantis slammed former President Trump during an interview Friday for his handling of the pinkopox pandemic, saying Trump's recent remarks suggest he would do everything the same if he was in the situation again. DeSantis made the remarks during an interview with Ben Shapiro, editor emeritus of the Daily Wire and host of the Ben Shapiro Show, the second top conservative podcast in the nation, because Contemporary is the top conservative podcast in the nation. No, I have no desire to use ChatGPT, so I've never read their TOS. Look, I think it's interesting because he's been attacking me by moving left, DeSantis said. So this is a different guy than 2015, 2016. He attacked me for opposing the amnesty bill in Congress. He did support this amnesty. 2 million illegal aliens. He wanted an amnesty. I opposed it. That's because that's what America First principles dictate. So that you're opposed to amnesty. He said that another key difference was how both men responded to the pandemic. Well, look, he responded by elevating Anthony Fauci and really turning the reins over to Dr. Fauci. DeSantis said, adding that he bucked Fauci, which is bullshit, every step of the way starting in April 2020. Whether it's the schools, of business, the mandates, and our state has never done better as a result. Dude, I watched your testing station being torn down. You were pulling every vehicle of traffic into the way station on 95 and shoving a Q-tip up their nose. Don't tell me you didn't fall for this bullshit too. We're number one for and in migration, number one for growth, and we continue to see great things happen, but it required me to cut against the grain, DeSantis said. It required me to know that every decision I made was going to be met with opposition from the media and from the left, but you know what's right, and you don't let them tell you, and so I think Fauci should have been fired. And I think the fact that Trump gave Fauci the presidential commendation on Trump's last day in office, that was a gut punch to millions of Americans around this country who were harmed by Fauci's lockdowns. Didn't we find out that that was Bush? I'm not going to quote that directly, but I think a lot of people found I think they did a community note on that particular statement and said that no, Fauci got the commendation from Bush. Shapiro then noted remarks that Trump had made recently, in which he declared the former New York Governor Andy Cuomo did a better job than DeSantis did in Florida. That's also not true, but... Look, I don't know where the Donald is coming from on all this. I don't know if he's trying to throw the race, if he's trying to buck DeSantis so the media leaves DeSantis alone because he's handpicked DeSantis. I hope not. I will not vote for Ron DeSantis. But the Donald has been all over the place. Now, as far as attacking from the left, he does almost have to. He almost has to attack him from the left. Remember, and I said this when Ron DeSantis got in, the vast majority of the Trump base will not vote for a candidate like DeSantis, and that is, at this point, the vast majority of the Republican base is the Trump base. The primary numbers reflect that because they are disaffected Democrats. Union-style corporate Democrats, not so much corporate necessarily, but people who supported that corporate Democrat side for a long time, but definitely the blue-collar, union work Democrats who were brought up to believe that the Republicans were the party of the rich, who got disaffected when the progressives literally became the party of the rich and started taking over the Democrat Party and shipping their jobs overseas, with Barack Obama saying, "Well, those jobs, they're never coming back." That is the majority of Trump's base. Disaffected Democrats. You can't win these people over by going to the Evangelical right. They rejected Bush for a reason. DeSantis also says he would push to repeal Trump criminal justice reform if elected. From Brett Samuels. Ron DeSantis said Friday that if elected president, he would call on Congress to repeal criminal justice reform bill signed into law by then-President Trump, his latest attack on Trump from the right. DeSantis, appearing on the Ben Shapiro Show, criticized the First Step Act, a bipartisan bill passed in 2018 that reduced mandatory minimum sentences, expanded credits for well-behaved prisoners looking for shorter sentences, and aimed to reduce recidivism. The Florida governor, who officially entered the 2024 White House race on Wednesday, called the legislation basically jailbreak bill. This is why you won't win, by the way. So one of the things that I want to do as president is to go to Congress and seek a repeal of the First Step Act. If you're in jail, you should serve your time. And the idea that they're releasing people who have not been rehabilitated early so they can prey on people in our society is a huge, huge mistake. You govern the Florida man state. Are you out of your mind? DeSantis voted for the initial House version of the bill while serving as congressman in 2018, something Trump's team has highlighted. He had resigned his seat before the final version, which critics argued contained significant changes from the House version to make it more moderate, came up for a vote later in 2018. Still, the criminal justice bill is one example of how DeSantis is likely to argue Trump is not conservative enough for primary voters. DeSantis' comments came on the same day he told a Tennessee radio host that he felt Trump was running to the left. Dude, this ain't it. This ain't it. Dude. Between this and the run as a executive order president, I mean, I've got plenty of reason just to write Ron DeSantis off as much as I can. But again, a lot of this is the point. To get the infighting going between Trump Republicans, who are Democrats, and the Evangelicals, who held their nose for Trump the second time, but, you know, at that point they really had nobody else to go back and vote for. And a lot of the evangelicons and a lot of the business cons were against Trump being in office at the beginning. I worked with a bunch of them at the time. In Madison. Most of us were Team Carson going into it. I actually started off as Team Fiorina, and then once Trump started winning the nomination, I said, okay, let's see what an outsider does for this. And I was sorely disappointed, for the most part. One of the things that I have noticed, and I've not mentioned this to my friend Wiz Political yet at this time, but I kind of want to point something out to him. Typically, in primaries, but also in general elections, a lot of people say that you don't have to worry about your core voters, the core of your party. It's independents that you have to worry about, and whoever plays well to the independents will win. One of the things about Ron DeSantis that I've noticed is that he probably will get the majority of the independent voters. He will probably take the independents walking away. But I don't think he can get the core. I don't think he can get the Republican Party core anymore. So we do have that going off of this. But we've got one other one for DeSantis. This, in my opinion, is actually a win for DeSantis. I'll give him credit where credit is due. This is not going to be the rip on everything that DeSantis does channel. When he does something right, I'll give him credit for it. This one comes from Rolling Stone. Furries now have a serious beef with Ron DeSantis. We don't even have to read into the article. The sub-headline tells you everything that you need to know about this. A furry fandom con in Florida just announced it would ban minors based on the governor's ridiculous laws. Hey, I have a question. Furryism is a sexual thing. Why were minors allowed in the first place? It seems to me that this is something that should have been going on, I don't know, when you first started doing furry cons. I hope my mom isn't watching right now, because I want to get a phone call after Contemporary and have to explain what a furry is. And I don't know if I'm ready for that conversation. In fact, I know I'm not ready for that conversation because I wasn't ready for that conversation when I learned what a furry was. I remember the day too, by the way, clearly. I went to a Ren fair with a girl who would eventually wind up pushing me to self-delete, to put a YouTube-friendly term on it. This was back when we still liked each other. We went to the Ren Fair together, and we were looking at all the costumes, and I was dressed up in the costume, and I saw what appeared, and I couldn't tell through the fur and everything, the costume, but what looked to be a pretty good-sized jacked dude with a broadsword on his back and a wolf head, a blue wolf head, walking around towards the meat store, and my then girlfriend told me that was a furry, and then she explained to me what that meant. And I was not ready for that conversation. Okay, anyway. Yeah, why are minors allowed in this thing to begin with? Let's talk about Target. From the USA Today, Bomb threats made against Target stores in Utah, Ohio, and Pennsylvania over Pride controversy. From Jessica, I'm going to say this is Gein. Police are investigating bomb threats made against Target stores in 3 states after being alerted by local media outlets that received emails referencing the retail chain's decision to remove or relocate LGBTQIRAMIGIXTBYOUAEIOU sometimes Y collections celebrating Pride Month. Target is full of cowards who turned their back on the LGBT community and decided to cater to the homophobic right-wing redneck bigots who protested and vandalized their store with the email threat read in part. Cleveland News 19 reported. Salt Lake City Police Communications Director Brent Weisberg told USA Today that officers worked with Target and determined there was no credible threat to the 2 Target stores in Salt Lake City. Officers will continue to neighborhood patrols around the Target locations in SLC out of an abundance of caution, Weisberg said in a statement. Weisberg declined to provide specific... wow. I can talk today. Weisberg declined to provide specifics of the threats, citing an ongoing investigation. We encourage anyone who sees anything suspicious to immediately call 911, he said. In a statement to USA Today, Target said its stores are open and operating in regular hours. Law enforcement investigated these claims and determined our stores are safe, the company said. Sergeant John Otteson with Layton Police told CBS affiliate KUTV News that bomb threats were made to Target stores in Layton, Salt Lake City, Taylorsville, and Provo. He said officers began the investigation after 2 local news stations received emails alerting them to the threats. The threats mentioned Target's Pride merchandise. The threat was 3 sentences long and came from a bogus email address, according to Otteson. Target has been hit with conservative backlash for merchandise it carries to promote Pride Month. Target's website carries hundreds of Pride products, including t-shirts, books, and furnishings. Pride Month begins in June. After critics posted videos of people attacking LGBTQIRAMIGIXTBYOUAEIOU sometimes Y Pride displays and confronting employees in Target stores, the company held emergency meetings and decided to remove or relocate some Pride merchandise so the merchandise is less visible in stores. At issue was misinformation spread about tuck-friendly swimsuits that allow trans women who have not had gender-affirming operations to conceal male genitals. Some social media accounts falsely claimed the swimsuits were being sold in children's sizes. They weren't, as far as I know, but they were being put right next to the children's section. Conservatives also seized on Target's partnership with Abpralin, which they claimed featured Satanist designs. Target sells Abpralin sweatshirts with a snake that says, "Cure transphobia, not trans people." So, we've talked about this. We talked a little. I didn't talk about this for the most part. I leave the culture war stuff to Stephen Ignoramus for the most part. But now that this has actually come into a bit of violence, now we've got to talk about it. Layton Target stores evacuated after bomb threats reported at multiple Utah stores. From CBS2 KUTV. A Target in Layton was evacuated after officials said they were informed of a bomb threat in multiple Utah locations. An employee of the Panda Express located next to the Target at 815 West 2000 North confirmed that multiple officers were on scene with a K-9 team by 1300 on Friday. They said all the store's occupants, staff, and customers appeared to have been evacuated to the parking lot. So, I mean, this is the thing, too. Even if somebody, and I'm sure that this person wasn't even anywhere close to Salt Lake City when they sent the email, I would be willing to bet that this is a person who originated in Seattle, Portland, Los Angeles, or New York, if I had to guess. Probably not somebody in Salt Lake City, but they talked about and they used a reasonably conservative area most of the time when you're in a big city, conservatism is just out the window no matter what. But a reasonably conservative area, we probably did see some backlash about Target putting these things at the front of the area. And sent the email and made a completely brand new email address, sent the email, and then probably deleted the email address after the fact. But that's the thing with bomb threats too. And I mean, we had an issue with this for a little while when we were in high school. It was, I think, a couple years we were getting 1 or 2 a quarter. When we were in, did it go back to middle school? I don't think it did. I think it was just in high school. They apparently allegedly caught the guy that was doing it. I still don't buy that that's who it was, because I know the person that they claim that it was, and I don't necessarily buy it or believe it. But with that being said, yeah, I mean, especially when you've got kids around, no matter how outrageous or unbelievable the threat is, you don't want to be wrong. No matter how fantastical the idea is that somebody undetected went in and slipped a bomb into that target, you still have to treat it if it's true, because what happens if you're wrong? And then that leaves a couple hours of no business for that target for a day, rattle employees who don't want to come back to work. In the school situation, when we were in school, it was, okay, well, we've got to get everybody off site as quickly as possible so we can go sweep the school, and, you know, a bunch of us start missing school days. So this is something you have to take seriously as much as it is. And again, as much as I don't believe that the person was in Layton doing anything, I don't buy that. I don't think that's true. But you don't want to be wrong. CBS Pittsburgh saying law enforcement determines target bomb threat was a hoax. Again, most likely. 99 times out of 100, if you're in a building that has a bomb threat, there will be no bomb. But you don't want to be the one that's responsible for that one time out of 100. And then suddenly you're responsible for, I don't know, what's usually in Target at any given time? 40 to 70 souls? 500 souls in a high school? As of this morning, we know that an email from a man claiming to have put bombs in several Target locations was false. How dare you assume this person's gender? Welcome, Silver Maple. The man sent an email to a news station in Cleveland saying that he put bombs in 5 Target locations, including one in Monaca, due to the retailer's decisions to pull Pride Month merchandise after some employees were threatened and displays were knocked over. Some of the stores were evacuated as the threat was investigated. Shoppers say they are disappointed with the entire situation. I stand behind Target selling whatever merchandise they like, said Justin Walensik. I always enjoy actually seeing all the LGBTQIRAMIGIXTBYOUAEIOU sometimes Y stuff that they have. I'm not really shocked, I guess, but hearing that is unfortunate. The FBI is now working to figure out who was behind the threatening email. Oh, that's right, I know who Silver Maple is. I'll cool down and come to Twitch. Yeah, on the same token, I mean, I don't necessarily care who sells what. There are certain sections that I won't go into. But the thing is, again, the anal vibrators and the tuck stuff does not necessarily need to be up front, where the kids are going to be. That's just common sense, you guys. We do have a copy of the letter. We are coming up on the last 15 minutes of the show, too, by the way. I'm going to go a little bit late because we got started a little bit late. You know, I don't typically have a timer, or I didn't when I was just live streaming, but now that I'm doing recordings for the audio platform, it actually gives me a timer now that I can see how long we've been, and I try to keep it to 2 hours. Travis in Flint tells us, update. Yesterday it was reported that Target stores in Ohio received multiple bomb threats. Initially, it was suspected that the threats came from someone upset about the Pride display. But new details show it was actually an LGBTQIRAMIGIXTVYOUAEIOU, sometimes Y ally, who said the bomb threats would continue until the LGBTQ... You get the picture. Items were brought back and put on display. Below is the email sent regarding the threats. Let's look. KSP, I don't even know what that is. Alright. Sender, which they determine is a false sender. Elsan Akhmedov. AlsanAkhmedov432@gmail.com to members@timcast.com. So, wait a sec. He sent this to Tim Pool too? Really? I might have to start listening to Tim again. Oh, God. That means I have to see all the video titles with one inflammatory capitalized word. And here, Civil War! Every 7th word. Oh, God. Oh, God. We're going to get recommendations for a couple Star Trek episodes that will blow your mind and probably go around next year. I've probably seen them already, but absolutely. I like Trek. Alright. Target is full of, I'm guessing the redacted word is fucking cowards, who turned their back on the LGBT community and decided to cater to the homophobic right-wing redneck bigots who protested and vandalized their store. We won't stand idly by as the far right continues to hunt us down. We are sending you a message. We placed a bomb in the following targets. Like, it's not capitalized, so, like, is this, they're talking about Target stores, or are they talking about just Targets generically? Season 3, 11 and 12. Oops, no, I don't want to do that. I'll look into that. Season 3, that was the last one with Kess in it. I don't remember what 11 and 12 were. And there are sanctuary cities. Alright. 4200 Kent Road, Stowe, Ohio. 5584 Dressler Road, Northwest, North Canton, Ohio. 417 Boardman Poland Road, Boardman, Ohio. 5555 Youngstown Warren Road, Niles, Ohio. 87 Wagner Road, Monaca, Pennsylvania. We will continue to bomb your targets until you stop cowering and bring back your LGBT merchandise. We will not be erased. We won't go quietly. Well, to Elsan Akhmedov, I mean, you played yourself. There's no such thing as Ohio. Oh, Deep Space Nine. Yeah, I know what you're talking about then. I do know what you're talking about with that. Why did I think Voyager? Yeah, Deep Space Nine. I don't know why I got to there. Alright. Yeah, dude, you played yourself. There is no Ohio. So you can't bomb those targets. The Pennsylvania one, yes, but Ohio doesn't exist. Why did he send it to Timcast, though? That's so weird. But also, now that I know what the address is to get to the members of Timcast, that means that I can turn around and try to promote myself and get on Timcast IRL. Oh God, could you imagine me on Timcast IRL? Alright. We're going to do the Lindsey Graham ones, and then we'll call it a day for the day, because we're coming up on the end. Let's look at the Daily Wire here. Before we get to Lindsey Graham, though. New Yorkers shout at AOC biscuit over border crisis, Ukraine war during chaotic town hall. From Zach Jewell. I thought this was like a year old or so, but no. It turns out that this was Saturday. That was season 7, by the way. And Esri was the superior Dax, too, by the way. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Chavez faced a handful of enraged constituents during a Friday night town hall in Queens. Some New Yorkers in attendance took issue with the Congresswoman's soft stance on illegal immigration, raising the debt ceiling and her support to seemingly endless U.S. funding for Ukraine. One man, wearing a shirt with a Cuban flag on it and holding an American flag in his hand, got up and walked towards the stage, shouting, "American citizens before migrants." "Were you on the migrant issue? You're absent," the man shouted as he was escorted out of the hall by security before being forced out of the room. As most of the crowd booed him, the man got 5 more words in. "You're a piece of shit." Let's watch.
So, sorry, sir, we're taking lines. Sir, we're taking lines. Sir, we're having people write their names on the piece of paper.
Oh, she said taking lines. I was going to say, this would probably be a much, much more interesting town hall if they were doing lines.
Oh, migrants! Oh, American Don't you touch me! Don't touch me! Get your hands off! Get your hands off! Where are you on the migrant issue? You're absent, American citizen. You're throwing veterans out of this country. Where are you? You're a piece of shit. You're a piece of shit.
Dude, she's not going to sleep with you guys.
Okay.
Okay, puppy.
The president has come out saying that he also believes that he has this authority. What he has also said is that he is not sure if he is able to implement the authority in time for the June 5th deadline. And so that is where we see kind of this impasse. I still believe, first of all, that we should start to implement it anyway because we should eliminate the debt limit in the United States because of the constitutional. Now, let me I will share something.
You claim that you voted for.
And I will share something. I don't like that Republicans passed a 1.7 trillion tax cut on the wealthiest people in this country. I don't like that we continue to report our military budget. I don't like that we have enormous amounts of.
If you do not support this, it is not your turn. I thought you wait your turn. Freedom of speech.
That is exactly why we use paper slips.
Exactly.
So next, we're going to go with Susan.
And then another one here. My friend Nagatone and I confronted AOC on her support for nuclear war on Ukrainian Nazis. This was from last year. So that's why I got confused. I thought this was the same thing. But no, it turned out to be another one. And the simp in the back. Hey, it's not your turn! Alright, let's talk Lindsey Graham and then we'll head out of here for the day. '80s Kid said, the sign that dude had was so cool. I didn't see that. AOC, actual obvious criminal. Haha, nice. Alright. From the Hill. Russia issues arrest warrant for Lindsey Graham after Ukraine comments, which is probably what we saw earlier. From Alexander Bolton. Russia's Interior Ministry has issued an arrest warrant for Lindsey Graham after he praised U.S. military aid to Ukraine as the best money we've ever spent. Hey, Interior Minister, come get him. I mean that both, by the way, as a challenge and the fact that I would actually like to see Lindsey Graham get arrested. But most openly, you don't have the balls to come in here, try to get around Capitol Police, and force an extradition that's not going to happen any other way. You don't have the stones, dude. Russian officials reacted to a video of Graham's meeting with Ukrainian President Zelensky in which Graham acknowledged Russians are dying and later said, "It's the best money we ever spent." Graham appeared to make the comments in different parts of the conversation, which was edited and posted on Zelensky's social media account, basically as a challenge to Russia. The South Carolina senator on Monday said, "It brings me immense joy to know that his support for Ukraine has drawn the ire of President Putin's regime. Maybe I'll have a prison story after this." "I will wear this arrest warrant issued by Putin's corrupt and immoral government as a badge of honor," he tweeted. Graham also offered a deal to his Russian friends who want to arrest and try me for calling out the Putin regime. "I will submit to jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court if you do. Come and make your best case. See you in The Hague." Well, you need to be seen in The Hague and not for anything that has to do with Ukraine and Russia. Most of your stances on the Middle East need to see you tried in the goddamn Hague. Russia's investigative committee has also opened a criminal case against Graham, asserting the Republican senator declared the financial involvement of the U.S. is causing the death of Russian citizens. Dmitry Peskov criticized the comments as a shame. "It is difficult to imagine greater shame for a country than having such senators." Politico, focusing on the response, Lindsey Graham responds defiantly to arrest warrant from Russia. Which, I mean, we just saw that there too. "Come and make your best case. We'll see you in The Hague." Well, Czechoslovakia? I think that's where The Hague is. I might be wrong on that one. No, it's in the Netherlands. Well, Ruta, you've got your invitation. Come and bring him in. Come on. We're waiting. All right, and our last one here from Nadler before we go in and look more definitively at the live chat for the night. We've got Greg Price with a breaking video. Gerald Nadler says he wouldn't care if Ukraine used American F-16s to strike Russia's territory and personally wouldn't mind if Ukraine invaded Russia. So much for this being a defensive war. So much for being anti-war, by the way. You guys were sure awfully quick to say how bad war was. publicly. You all voted for it anyway when Bush was the one doing it. Let's listen.
It's high time. It should have been done a long time ago.
It's high time. And then what do you think about his previous comments, though, that it was too escalatory to do, now it's not?
I think he was wrong. I think, every different weapon system first was too escalatory, and then we eventually gave it to them. And they're fighting not only for their lives, they're fighting for democracy, and they're fighting for the world order against, just invasion of another country, altering borders by force, which is inadmissible since 1945, and we should give them whatever they need.
And are you concerned that they will enter into Russian territory, as there have been recent reports of Belgorod, the border city?
I'm not concerned. I wouldn't care if they did.
You wouldn't care if they went into Russia?
Nope.
Really? You would still support them?
Turnabout's fair play. I don't think they're going to do it in any large scale. But why should Russia feel that they can invade somebody else and have total safety at home?
Well, but that would cross the line to a U.S. sanctioned invasion of Russia by
You don't
Ukraine.
have to sanction it.
Well, you would be providing the weapons that conducted it, is what I'm saying. Is if the
We're
F-16s
not providing it for that purpose. I said I personally wouldn't mind.
You personally...
Yeah, that makes it U.S. sanctioned, you war pig.
I wouldn't mind, but, you are a representative of the government. So,
Well, I'm part of the government. I'm not part of the executive branch.
right.
But I think we should give them whatever they need.
Okay. And if an F-16 was to be used on Russia, you wouldn't come out and say, that's too much? It's too far?
No, I don't think that's going to happen in any event, but no. They're going to use F-16s for air defense, basically.
But
No,
there
they're
are
not.
reports right now that American weapons are being used in Belgorod, which is, a Russian territory. It's already happening.
That may be, but they're not going to use major weapons. I mean, things like F-16s, they need for air defense over Ukraine so that they can provide air cover for their counterattack and things like that. They're not going to waste it in Russia.
You want to bet? Is this guy a moron? Well, he is a moron. I mean, he's going to be the next one that they call to The Hague. Because whatever it is that Lindsey Graham said, that is an outright endorsement of Ukraine invading Russia by a sitting U.S. senator. So, that's a thing. Huh. All right, let's look at the live chat for the day, because that is what we finish out our Monday on today. So, we're getting enough interest, by the way, that I think starting next week, we're going to go back to the notebook. I know that we were falling off for a little while, so for the rest of the week, if you want to get your name read at the end of the week, if you're here, I need you to put at least one message into the live chat. Just one, because that's all it takes to register you in the servers for Restream.io, which tracks our chat. I've got to do it manually for Rumble, so if you want to come back in and keep me accountable on Rumble too, make sure you get at least one message in on the Rumble side so I can come in and say, hey, you chatted with us on the Rumble side. But for this week, we'll be the last one doing just what happened through the week. So on Instagram, Lisa Clara and Retta David 2 joined us over on the Instagram side, so thank you for coming in and playing with us today. On Rumble, let's have a look over here. I think Dual Helix dominated the chat here today. Do remember we're on YouTube, so some of the stuff we've either already read or I do have to skip over. Rumble needs to stop procrastinating and fixing their search. The power slap is insufferable. Yeah, I have an ad for power slap down here, actually. Same with Destiny, insufferable, and Sneeko, 75 IQ hype boy. I've heard of Destiny, never watched, and Sneeko I don't know anything about. Apparently power slap is people smacking each other. It's like boxing with no skill. Yeah, boxing does take a lot of skill, by the way. Apparently my foobar voice needs some work. My JoJo from Joey's voice. Yeah, Biden won't stand a chance if he doesn't try to push student loan forgiveness, but that won't happen. Right, but again, he needs to be able to go and blame that on the Republican Supreme Court for political purposes. Odyssey is totally dead, yeah. Government shutdown is in 2 weeks. I don't think so, but it's possible, says Dual Helix. We got the old man Biden won't survive with me. What font is this? Oh, look at the fiscal responsibility bill. I have no idea. It's fairly wide space to be 99 pages. I bet you on a normal, like, typed out document, it's probably like 30. Pork fat, we read about that. Dual Helix says CNN just blatantly lies now. We say what you tell us to as long as you pay. Step 1, fear. Doesn't matter if it's real or imagined, merely perceived. Step 2, seek security. Following a crowd provides security. Step 3, fanatical crowd. Following produce tribalistic behaviors that sets up an us versus them mentality. And even the people who want nothing to do with the original fears get labeled as them and attacked systematically. Rinse and repeat. That is the last Patriot Act, it looks like, from the 112th Congress from Dual Helix. Yeah, I read that with Jared Polis. Dual Helix asked earlier if I'd read ChatGPT's TOS, which I haven't. You gotta understand what Alice is before you can start to understand ChatGPT. Alice starts for artificial life form intelligence cognitive entity, but it's just an algorithm designed to collect information and fill out a list. Wasn't that from a movie? Here I have a live stream of me talking to Alice. Which I've got that. Save that link. Go to about 5 minutes in where I ask, what do you know about me? ChatGPT is just Alice that can Google stuff and it's making a list. I don't know. I have no interest in ChatGPT. Honestly, I prefer real intelligence. Apparently furries smell the same as carnies. I don't know what this one is. Poor Violent J, though.
If I told you.
Juggalo furries from Count Dankula, huh? I'll have to listen to that off stream. Again, man, I hope my mom wasn't listening because I don't want to have to explain that. I know what you're talking about with the sanctuary cities. It's a little bit different than like the sanctuary city ideas that we have for illegal immigrants, but I mean, an us versus them paradigm, that was the one where Cisco changed history to become that one dude in history books too. I can't think of his name. And it is set in 2024. Interesting side note to 2024 and Star Trek canon, by the way. Picard Season 2 took place largely in 2024 as well, but I don't know if the stuff... Was it Lucas Bell was his name? I don't know if that got retconned out for that, because I don't remember them mentioning that in the 2024 that they went to. And that was in San Francisco, and they went to LA for 2024 for Picard. So I wonder if that's a retcon or if they changed something with that. And yeah, I don't know why I got Voyager, but yeah, it was Deep Space Nine. Dax got switched. She went from a top to a bottom Leslie. I liked Ezri. I thought Ezri was cute with the pixie cut and everything. I mean, don't get me wrong, dark hair, light eyes, Jadzia was also a knockout, but I don't know. I like the Ezri character better. I couldn't get past the Jadzia Mary Sue from the beginning, like the person who was always awesome at everything. Yes, I understand there were 7 lifetimes of experience that went into there, but like this, I come out of the gate and I'm always awesome at everything, but I'm still only a lieutenant junior grade when I start off of this. Whereas, like, there was actual, I can't find myself, I don't know what to do in Ezri's writing. I like Ezri better. The writing, the character. And I do understand, too, where, like, Deep Space Nine was coming from in the beginning. They didn't know what they were going to do with Jadzia Dax. They didn't really quite figure that out until, like, season 3, like this. Because they didn't have they already had the badass paramilitary chick in major shoulder pads. And they couldn't go out to the extreme feminine side with a character like that being in the lead. It was interesting to see where they finally wound up going with her, but like there was a lot of misstep in the very beginning for that. Apparently there's a hymn to AOC over on the Rumble side. I'll have to go check that later. I bet Lindsay's going to get a bunch of Russian hotel ads in the mail. I bet Jerry Nadler's phone beeps when fresh stem cells are available. Gabriel Bell, not Lucas Bell. Yeah, that's a hard part too, before I switch over to the main chat. Jadzia, Terry Farrell started as a pretty bad actor, but she got better. Because I remember, because I didn't see Deep Space Nine until like 3 years ago. Full stop. But my ex-fiance, my second fiance, liked the show Becker back, and I think it was still new when we were watching it, but we were watching the reruns on UPN late at night, and that's where I knew Terry Farrell from. I didn't realize it was the same person. And actually, when she left and changed over to Ezri, it was because she got the deal for that job. Alright, let's switch over to the main chat and see what you guys are doing over here. Alright, Mogwai says, so target is targeted. Mr. Scott says, why specifically Lindsey Graham? Well, we covered that. No, not the Southern Belle of South Carolina, Lindsey Graham. Grant says, happy Memorial Day. Salute to those who gave their life in pursuit of the things our country is supposed to stand for. Mogwai says, Mr. Scott, he has confidential files hidden somewhere on his body. Russia has to find them. And Lindsey Graham welcomes that. 80s Kid says, do not target the kids. And that was me forgetting that my mic was off, or it must have cut off again, like right after I switched the scene. Mogwai says, you mad that Anderson Cooper hasn't knocked on your door? Caster says he's jealous that Weekly Roundup gets more views than his show does, which I gotta get in touch with you, Silent Caster, after, unless I have to explain furries to my mom. Silent Caster criticizing my use of Twitter, of course. I still like it. Into is here. Silent Caster says, so what did the Kevin McCarthy and all these negotiations actually do? Nothing but get us back into an us and them attitude. Mogwai says he wasn't a better speaker, but Clyburn was a hell of majority whip. He kept the party in line. Are we putting a debt ceiling or a ceiling fan on the debt ceiling? Maybe. So just spend, baby, spend. Let's see. I did this one. I did this one. Sonic Kesha says, but Ukraine. I've made this point before too. Mogwai says, you can tell who's climbing in the Republican Party by watching whose ass Lindsay's nose is deep in. And yeah, if DeSantis starts to rise to the top, that's right where that nose is going. Yes, well done, NBC, using tweets for reporting, which I use report for that too. Soundcaster says, this is Democrats having a blackjack and Republicans doubling down on a 5, hoping to catch up. I could still win. Silver Maple, coming over onto the Twitch side. Thank you for that. Do you have any alerts over there, by the way? No. The anal lube should be the impulse buy shelves at the checkout. Nah, to the back of the store with you. Silentcaster says, issue when you say it's common sense is that it sidesteps the actual argument, why it's wrong. When you spell out the argument, it's much more compelling, actually. The question came up and I asked the same question. What is KSP? Dual Helix / Silver Maple? Silentcaster, no, it just happened again. She did get yelled at a town hall last year, too. Mogwai says, Power Slap should have never been greenlit. Maybe I'll have to go watch it and see what it's all about. And Mogwai says, I did see they referenced the Kerbal Space Program. I've never heard of that. Sorry. Let's see. I did say they referenced the punk rock guy that was on the bus in Star Trek 4 in this season of Picard. Yes, they did do that. But they didn't talk about the Gabriel Bell riots. Or the internment camps or the sanctuary cities either. So they didn't talk about that, even though this was all in the same year. So it'll be interesting. We'll see what happens with that. But with that, it's time for some dinner. It's time to head out of here. I got to grab my last of my laundry out of the dryer. It wasn't quite done when we went live, but with that, we're going to head out of here for the day. It was a lot of fun. 2 hours and 17 minutes that I've got to change over in an audio clip and then put over on the audio platform. Let's head out of here. Where is... I restarted over the weekend, but I did get the outro music up here ready to go. So let's get that started and we'll go find out who we're going to raid and head out of here for the day. Alright, and with that, we're done. We're out of here. We got some stuff left over to go cover tomorrow. I do anticipate probably going to be a little bit of a slow news day, but we're probably going to talk about the debt ceiling again for a little while and see what's happening with that. We'll probably talk about Lindsey Graham a little bit and a host of other things. We'll see what happens in the next 22 hours over here on Contemporary. So thank you, everybody who came by and chatted and came by and hung out and kept us on point, kept us going, and even distracted us a little bit while we were on point as well. Let's see, who are we going to go raid? Oh, that's my voice. We don't want to do that. Well, you guys are here to hear my voice, but we don't want to hear it twice over. Let's see. Elden Ring. Wind Waker. We've got a Wind Waker that's playing over here. And Tears of the Kingdom. We're not going to do Tears of the Kingdom. Let's go check out this one that's doing Wind Waker here, which I've never played either, but I know most of you guys have. So we will go and check that out, and we'll be back here tomorrow for more news, more headlines, and more Contemporary. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to coming and hanging out with you there. And we'll see you then. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.